The topic for today is assessing if your facilities management solution is value for money and is part of the how-to webinar. Typically the sessions are aimed at senior property and facilities managers in both private and public sectors, and it's good to see both groups represented today. Also, if you're not particularly focused on the property and facilities side, but you're there looking to improve performance of the facilities as a basis for targeting performance improvement, then this one again might give you some food for thought. Just a quick introduction to Cortex. They're a multidisciplinary consulting and organisation company specialising in sort of FM, real estate, project management and change management. Our areas tend to be around capability development, performance improvement and cost reduction, and changing sort of visions that organisations have into a sort of reality. Okay, so in terms of the running order for today, I'll just do a quick introduction of myself, a couple of the objectives that I'm seeking to sort of deliver today. I'm also then looking at establishing the VFM framework, and so some sort of context around what that would look like. And then moving on to what and how to measure, so business need, cost benchmarking, quality benchmarking, process benchmarking, and then at the end the top 10 typical sort of webinar recommendations that we have at the end of these sessions. I've just had a note come in that potentially people aren't seeing the screen at the moment, so let me just check whether it's anything my end. Okay, right. Apparently, I've addressed the problem. Sorry about that. So yeah, just quickly to run through the running order again. So a bit about me, objectives, setting up a VFM framework in the context in which to evaluate value, and then how cost, business need, quality, process can be used to measure, and then the top 10 issues that we think you should be taking from this and making sure that you've got covered going forward. Okay, so it's a bit about me. A specialist in the sort of effective and appropriate change of property and facilities. I started off life as a quantity surveyor, subsequently got an MSc in project management from Reading. I currently, for a very small part of my time, am an external tutor at the College of Estate Management, and recently as a member of the RICS FM Executive helped develop the RICS White Book. I've sort of been doing the strategic property and facilities advice for over 15 years, and that's included development of property strategies for over 1 million square metres of estates, procurement of over £400 million of FM services, and value for money and FM audits for £1 billion of expenditure. Typically the value for money side have included organisations such as Allen Overy, BBC, Centrica, Kinetic, etc. So quite a broad range of both private and public sector organisations. I work extensively with both IPD and OPEX, and essentially both of the OPEX more predominantly in the PFI market, IPD more generally across sort of occupiers generally, and essentially both have really good rigorous processes along with our own to ensure that there's consistent VFM comparators and benchmarks. So in terms of today's objectives, it's to establish a framework that enables assessment of value for money for FM delivery, so it's looking at the wider context of value. And then an approach that we've used to critically analyse value for money, although recognising that people here might want to develop their own approaches, and sort of just some of the things that we've learned and sort of feel might be useful for you separately. The first place I'd just like to sort of start is, as I say, we do work quite a lot with IPD, and so on license, I've taken one of these slides from them. Essentially, these were comments from the IPD Facilities Management Benchmark Group, included quite a large number of the finance, sort of large banks like Barclays and Lloyds and some of their other large corporate occupiers, as well as some in quite a few in the public sector, including the GPU estate. And essentially, the feedback was from reasons why facilities contracts were lost, or indeed, sort of why they went on to choose other organisations. And I think probably one of the important things here is, whilst cost features quite heavily in this sort of slide, so we've got a cost there, we've got cost here, we've got cost here. There's large numbers of things that sort of talk about cost. There's far more that talks about other issues and other things that they would perceive as a value to them, as opposed to just the very narrow concept of cost. So this ability to demonstrate partnership, the ability to change, the service quality, the service levels, the inflexibility, the unresponsiveness for ones that they got rid of. So there are many things that need to be taken into account when trying to assess value. So essentially, just to summarise that into 3 circles as opposed to lots and lots of narrative, the cost definitely is a big important part, but then the other sides around customer requirements, service risk and flexibility are all key to actually trying to establish the value side. So essentially, we're looking at bringing together some understanding of the whole to understand whether value is being delivered. I think the other issue that is part of value for money is that sometimes people see value for money at any given point in time, which clearly it is, but actually the important aspect as well is about making sure there's a process in place to always check and challenge and test whether property and facilities are providing value to the organisation as the organisational need changes. So basically, there is that's the sort of the workplace FM and property aspects that most of us are familiar with managing, and then there's this constant cycle going round around the current performance strategies to improve performance and program implementation, back to the evaluation success. So basically, all the time we're challenging and understanding where value lies. So we'd sort of advocate that value for money should be part of a process, is not just a point in time. So taking that and having also read quite widely things like PAMCAM and the EN European sort of quality and FM related documentation, I think there's a number of areas where there's a fairly constant theme coming through about what delivers value. And we put together our own 4 or 5 and then engaged with the contracting market to sort of see what their views were, and came up with sort of the following 5. So the first one is around understanding the business need, and that needs to be on an ongoing basis, so through repeatable processes. There needs to be a match of FM supply to business need. That cost is important, but it's the unnecessary cost element that's the bit that creates the value. You don't just remove cost for cost's sake. It's also about what is appropriate and where should you be spending your money. There needs to be effective processes to manage performance and effective processes to manage risks. And this sort of little model here we use when we're doing value for money, to evaluate suppliers, evaluate in-house departments to understand how effectively they're managing at the moment. This then helps to sort of work out what direction and change you can go through later on. So just to share it then, this is the review process and a bit of a summary of this lot. And the aspects around here, so there's the business need and how you gather that, what information you need at that level. There's then the supply side, which looks at the cost and the space and the things that drive cost. There's the quality side, so what is the user doing, what do they need, how well is the organisation receiving or providing information for those users. And then there's the processes that necessarily need to be in place to support this whole thing. And these, and so there's benchmarks around the processing side as well, and what expectation you'd need to see in place, and that gives a final output of sort of value for money. So in terms of business need, and I'm sure many here have very good structures in place to abstract information, but the first thing that I'd probably note is business need is constantly changing. So almost inevitably, a month ago, if we look at it, the business would have changed. So so the number of people, and there's a few universities on today, the number of students, number of people, the people that you employ, the profitability of an organisation. Business is constantly changing, and FM and property need to track and manage accordingly. So with that sort of understanding, it's important as part of the business need to understand what is the organisation doing, including the people it employs, what's the interface with customers, profitability, what markets they're in, what locations they need to be in. How do they interface with clients? There's also the sort of drivers and pressures to change. So an example on cost would be, we did a review on BP many years ago, and we did 2 in 2 years. So the first year we went there, the oil price was very low, oil cost per barrel was really low, and the whole business was structured around cost in a way that perhaps BP isn't particularly used to. 2 years later, the oil price had recovered, and cost was not such an issue, and there were far more qualitative and sort of qualitative changes that needed to be in place. So there's things like where are you in sustainability? 10 years ago, sustainability not a major issue, becoming more of one, probably less so in the past year. HR issues around recruitment in the middle of a cycle, probably not that important. As we're coming out of the cycle and looking to recruit the right people, then probably gaining more importance. So all these sort of things help position and understand where property and facilities fits within the overall business context. So before we go into the supply bits, the cost, the quality, and the process, I think at this point in time, it's really important to understand or to measure things in a consistent way. And I've put this one up there. Again, it's an IPD-related one. The main reason I put it up here is it's available free. So they've got 3 measurement tools. One is cost, they've got a space one, and they've got an environmental one. And all of them are open to to anyone who wants to use them. And it just allows people to compare things on a consistent basis using these. So it's quite a valuable tool. As I say, go to their website and download, and you can have those for nothing at all. Okay, so you've got your organisational needs. You've agreed a consistent way of measuring what you need to do. So these are some of the things that typically you might want to measure. Here's one that's the cost side is probably the one that's most obviously seen as a component of value for money, and this one just is a graph that sort of compares different buildings and also compares the data, the similar buildings in that data set. So site 1 could be a back office and compares favourably there. This one could be a data centre and is just above the lower quartile, but all of these compare favourably. There's not a major issue on cost on these, but it could be that whilst the cost is low, the value is not in the organisation. Other drivers of space, so, I mean here we've got metres squared per person across continents, and typically you could have another one in here that sort of shows whether it's performing well or badly. There's a percentage occupation, so how long people are in particular buildings, and it depends on the type of organisation you've got. The local authorities will have lots of different departments, sort of the planning department could be out a lot of the time, the accounts department could be in most of the time, and it's interesting just to see how the percentage occupation of space is and how that can drive cost. The next section I'm going to look at, so we've done the cost, we've done the quality, we're now on to the quality. A definition of quality is borrowed a bit from a chap called Deming, who knows far more about quality than I do. And essentially their definition is around the need for something and the actual delivery, the actual sort of how things perform against it. For this, we've developed a standard methodology and then do a bespoke questionnaire. I think if you're seeking to do your own, then essentially, I think what's important here is to have the context of the importance of the business. So there should be a question in here for each of the services around the importance of the business. And then there's a question about, does it meet the actual delivery target? And they're fairly straightforward to set up, these quality questionnaires, and it's something that I think, particularly if you've got broad estates, or you can compare with other like-minded institutions or companies, then effectively you'll start working out what these should look like and what the comparators, so the red marks are the comparator organisations and where they fit into it. What sort of quality should you expect from taking away the importance and the actual delivery to see where you are. As part of the process, to establish these sort of figures, we interview users and key stakeholders, which I think is important if you're going to undertake some sort of value assessment. So this is one way of portraying the information. This is another and probably slightly easier to describe. When essentially down here are all the different services. Might not be easy to see, but there's things like reception, catering, office cleaning, air quality. And naught would be the absolute ideal. So your business need and your actual delivery exactly meet each other at naught. And then the rest, so fire alarm tests in this particular case would be spot on. The green bits are the ones where we accept, bearing in mind the questioning we do, there is a level of tolerance that should be allowed to say, if it's below 20%, then the green meets requirements. That should be an amber, not a yellow. But this bit here would be 20 to 25%. There's a degree of potentially an issue. It's beyond where we'd expect. And then red is the significant issues. This lineup is one of the worst that we came across. Normally you'd expect 1 or 2 reds, number of ambers, and majority greens. But it allows you to then focus on areas where the quality isn't quite right. So for example, if we look at this one, and it was the same data set as the cost one earlier on, then office cleaning here isn't performing particularly well, but it would be low cost. So potentially you'd have depending on the driver of the business, if cost is the driver, then you'd say that it's probably good value. Or if you need better delivery, then this would start indicating that value is lower and more problematic. This one is just a summary of these here, so it's a percentage of these that are lines on there. Sorry, wrong way. And essentially on this, again using red, amber, green, the hard services and management here, that we've got over 10% that are red, and over 30% that are red as well on the hard and management. Soft services are just about okay. This was a particularly live one and a particularly bad one, so we wouldn't normally expect to see it this bad. The final side is around sort of expecting to see processes in place that support the organisation. And we'd expect to see those at strategic, tactical and operational levels, and the ability for the strategic to inform the tactical, operational, and then when there's outputs for it to go the other way. So that essentially, if we look at that in slightly more detail, the strategic you'd anticipate would appraise business needs, set strategy, and will inform the next layer down, possibly the supplier. The tactical would be around deploying the strategy here, creating policies and processes and managing change and feeding back information up here. And then the operational would be around coordinating activities, implementing changes, and again feeding back up insight into here so that decisions can be made. Again, coming back to the PAMCAM and EN and other documentation around evaluating the sort of overall performance and value, there are a limited number of processes which appear to be consistently important to an organisation. So these are the ones written down here. Essentially, that they are customer relationship management, so the ability to then change that into service alignment and innovation, performance management, risk management, and the ability to, in the process to make sure the right people in the right place at the right time with the right capabilities. So if we sort of look at, again, just take one of these, which is a CRM example, looking at the process and looking at the things that we'd expect to see in place and therefore be able to benchmark between one organisation and another, we'd expect to see on strategic customer relationship management an understanding of how the business is and how it's supported. We'd expect to see triggers that start the process, so it could be quarterly HR data, it could be new production data coming through, it could be student numbers coming through. There's quite a lot of things that would start that potentially start that process, or inform the process as it goes along. That there's an expectation there'll be a person responsible for the process, and at a strategic level would have appropriate seniority within the FM, and be talking to the right people in the business. They'd expect to be appropriate inputs into the process, such as ongoing receipt of the business demand information discussed up there, business units, and would expect outputs that support the objective, and to deliver the sort of structured feedback down to this level, the tactical level. We'd expect to be at a tactical level. There should be mechanisms to regularly monitor and manage this high-level service agreement. And then at the operational level, there should be a means of capturing information at that level, such as complaints about the service or suggestions to improve the service, which again can feed back into the different levels above. So that sounds quite complicated, or might sound quite complicated. Essentially, it can be simplified down if you develop a scoring methodology for those around the operational, tactical, strategic, looking at the inputs and outputs and the resources that are needed for the process. And essentially, if we look at some of these on here, let's come down to the CRM. So on the CRM, we had things like who's the main contact. We had where the main starting points of the process are, what the inputs are to that process, what the outputs are, and if you go around your organisations, you would expect to see things like that in customer relationship management. You expect to see those processes in place. The chances are, if they're not in place, that will be detrimental to the overall contribution of value. You will not be able to align the business requirement with the supply on an ongoing basis. So whilst the first one, the cost, and then the second one, the quality, is very much a point in time, these allow for the value to be considered over a longer period of time and inform the process as you go. So that's the customer relationship one. On this particular one, the organisation we were looking at had a very poor customer relationship management section, and most of the rest of the organisations that we compared them with were a lot better at doing it, and one of them was very, very good. This one is best practice. So if you had everything in place, that's what it would look like and feel like. So if we come down to, say, for example, the alignment one, then again it was poor, but the market is poor as well. So there's only one that's doing a fairly good job there, compared with, say, risk, where most of the companies viewed had a good approach to risk. So if you go through that process, you end up with these that we started with, which was the model, which is you need to understand business need through repeatable processes. There's the ability to match FM supply to business need, how good you are at removing unnecessary cost, the effectiveness of process to manage performance, the effective process to manage risks. And essentially, if you're reviewing either an in-house department or a supplier, then this is their column. And then this is, if you were looking externally at what you'd expect the external market to do, then are they going to be better or worse than than that's available there? And essentially, if we just look through these, this was a real life one that we did, although there was lots of narrative in here as well that explained why these colours were the colours they were. But if we look at the first one, the organisation delivering the service was not particularly good at understanding the business need. Equally, the supplier was sourced from external, was outsourced, and the view on this was that the strategic element of the understanding of the business need was not able to inform the tactical and operational level. So therefore, the FM market would not be able to respond any better than the current supplier. The internal client would have to change things before this would go to green, either there or there. The next one down, matching FM supply to business need. The bit of information that's coming from there was dealt with in a fairly rigorous, capable process, far better than we'd seen in other organisations, and so therefore the expectation of what you would get from the market was less good than there. Looking at the unnecessary costs, there were a number of benchmarks on the cost side which were higher than we'd expect at that particular time, which meant the market potentially had greater opportunity to deliver better. The next one down is the managed performance. I mean, seeing whether you've got help desk service levels, measurement of performance in place. This organisation did, and was far ahead of where we saw most of the rest of the market. They've been high quality, highly capable, and well ahead of where most of the rest of the market was. So the chances are, if you were looking for value improvements in this area, the rest of the market wasn't going to be able to deliver them. And then finally, the risk is both organisation, both the current and the market were able to do those really well. So again, if you take the context of the business and the organisational need, understanding what these bits were in terms of what could be delivered, if you understand then whether cost is an issue, or whether sort of the management process is an issue, or whether the constant alignment is an issue, then this helps establish whether it is advantageous to change the current sourcing of the current arrangement. Okay, so in summary then, just going back to the model, the first place that I think anyone needs to start on any of these is some sort of context around the organisational need. What are the objectives? What is the business trying to achieve? So you can then start setting objectives for the property and facilities organisation behind it. We'd advocate that cost is an important component of whatever you're doing, but actually you need to be delivering more than that. So you need to be looking at both the cost and also the quality element, so some input from the users, and also to be able to do it on an ongoing long-term basis, look at the processes that support these and the constant change and the constant ability to improve. If all of these, if the cost is low and the quality is high and the processes are rigorous, then the chances are you have a high value for money solution and accordingly reported. And clearly, most organisations aren't great at all three, so there's always ways and means to improve the current performance. The top 10 issues that came out of that come out of today, from our point of view, and if you have any others that you sort of think that people can learn from this, then please submit your thoughts to afterwards, and we'll circulate them to people on the call. But the first one is value is more than just cost and needs to be seen in a broader context. The value, the maintenance of value should be a process and not just the project, and therefore you need to have rigorous processes in place to ensure that ongoing value is maintained. The sort of environment where you have a supplier bidding and then goes away for 3 years until the next bid, and you're hoping that you're aligned on value, is just something that's that shouldn't be happening. As an organisation, you should be monitoring value on an ongoing basis. Coming back to the IPD consistent approach to then I think it's massively important that when you're comparing your performance with others, then you need to make sure that you are measuring things in the same way. Now, you can either do that through forming your own groups. There's universities on here, there's big corporate organisations. You can go to other organisations and discuss this and make sure that you agree the approach. But if you need to, then there are commonly available for free things from IPD which are a useful starting point. Go and have a read, see where you're going, see how you want to move it forward. The business need is critical for context, and there needs to be a clear understanding of that, and you need to work out how you're going to get that information. And the quality side, the user perception of the difference between what the organisation needs and what it's getting from FM property is important as well. The process to support the whole thing need to be at the strategic, tactical and operational processes. If things are breaking down because of process, don't just look at suppliers or don't just look at operational and tactical level people delivering within your in-house team. Also think about the relationship at the strategic end, because failing suppliers can be because of client processes, not just because of their own. I think benchmarking is quite an important part, and we've identified the fact, we've identified methodologies that help you benchmark process and quality as well as cost, and definitely there's ways that all of you can sort of do that and think about that. I think coming back to the process issue, value for money is constantly changing, and you should use reviews of value for money to set new targets to continuously improve and to monitor performance against target, ensuring continuous VFM. That's the end of my sort of presentation for today. If you've got any feedback or any questions or any observations or anything to add to the top 10 that you think should be in there that would help the other people that have been on the call, please feel free to get back to us onto the website. And apart from that, thank you very much for listening.